This is the Sony RX100 Mark III and it was released 10 years ago, but how good is this camera in 2025? Well, let's first look at the value, because a few years ago you could pick these up brand new for about 400 euros, but now they are on the used market for about 450 euros, so they increased in price. And that is because Sony doesn't make compact cameras anymore. So they are definitely a bit expensive for what you get. And these days you also have your smartphone, which can also take some really nice photos. So do you really need a compact camera in 2025? Well, when we first look at the build quality, it feels very well made, like all Sony RX100 cameras. It has a nice flip-up screen and also a manual focus ring. So that's really nice. And you can change this between different settings. So you can select it to change the aperture, but also the focus or the zoom. And it also has this built-in viewfinder, which is really nice because most compact cameras don't have a built-in viewfinder. And when you hit this button, the flash will appear. So that's also interesting. But keep in mind, it is a xenon flash, so it won't work when taking videos. It's just a flash for taking photos. For the ports, it is very basic. It only has a micro USB port and a small HDMI port, which aren't great. So you can't really attach an external microphone on it. The built-in microphone sounds decent, but it's not great. You don't want to do any professional work with this microphone. It's not that great. And you also don't have a multi-interface shoe on here. So that means you can't really attach an external microphone to this camera. But this camera is more of a photography focused camera, so you probably don't want to get this if you are shooting videos. But what is nice is that it has here a screen that you can easily flip up so you can get a selfie view, but you can also flip it down. So that's very nice, it's very versatile. And the camera has a 20 megapixel sensor that can shoot some really nice photos. So when we take a look at the photo quality, you can still see that it looks like the photos were taken on an actual camera instead of your phone. But the downside to that is that the dynamic range is limited. Even though it's a large 1-inch sensor, which is still bigger than most smartphones, it's not as big as a full frame camera, because it's obviously a pocket camera. And because it's an old camera, it also doesn't have the latest technology that the newer smartphones have, so the dynamic range won't be great. It has a 24 to 70 mm f1.8 to f2.8, so that is even a better aperture than the newer RX100, but you do lose out on a very large zoom, so the zoom isn't that far. But because the aperture is f1.8, that means you can get a very nice blurry background, so you can get a nice autofocus background. And that's really nice for a camera that's so small. But the autofocus of this camera for video, it's not great at all. It really misses focus sometimes. And it likes to focus on the background instead of the foreground. So if you want better autofocus, then don't get this camera. Your smartphone can probably shoot about the same quality of video, but just with a little bit less background blur. And even though it's a higher bitrate XAVC-S, I don't think the Full HD has a lot of detail. And something like the ZV-1 has a much better video quality compared to this camera. But the autofocus for photos is pretty good. It's not as fast as the newest cameras, but it's still more than fast enough if you're just shooting normal things. If you're shooting sports, then it might be a little bit on the slow side. But other than that, it's still decent. It also has a built-in 3 stops ND filter, so that's really nice. But keep in mind that when you zoom in, there will definitely be a bit of noise. And that means that when you switch to video mode, then the zoom will be very slow. And you will still hear the zoom in the recordings, but it's so annoying when zooming in and out with this camera. And on the newer RX100 models, you had the option to select a faster zoom and then you hear the zoom in the recordings. But this camera doesn't have that option, so you are stuck with a very slow zoom. And what is nice is that you have all the full manual controls of this camera with the button. So unlike a smartphone where you have your touchscreen, you can just use these physical controls on the body to change the settings. And for stabilization, the built-in lens stabilization isn't that amazing, but it's still decent. And when shooting video, you also have the intelligent active stabilization mode, which will crop in a bit, so you will lose even more image quality. But then the stabilization will be pretty decent, so you will get a decent handheld look. So should you still get this camera in 2025? Well, it really depends, because if you're shooting video, then you probably don't want to get this. And if you're a photographer, then you only want to get this if you need something that is portable and can fit in your pocket. Because otherwise you can just use your smartphone and take around another camera with a larger sensor, for example a Sony A7 series. Because these cameras are definitely a lot more expensive than they used to be. But what do you think of this camera? Let me know in the comments down below, and thank you so much for watching.